Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today I'm going to show you how to upgrade your aging iMac with a super quick SSD. Okay, right, now to do this upgrade we're going to need a couple of tools and a couple of parts. We're going to need either a suction cap like so, or else some kind of prying tool. Be careful if you need to use prying tools. We're going to be lifting this glass up, and prying tools is likely to possibly break it. Suction caps are much safer. Use one of these if you can. If you really can't find one, you can risk a prying tool though. We're also going to need a Torx set of screwdrivers. Specifically, I believe it's T8, T6, and sometimes T10, depending on which version of the iMac you have. But any kind of Torx set should have all of them in that you need. You're going to need an SSD of your choice. In this case, I'm fitting a Samsung Evo 750. This is a really good value SSD. It's not the fastest one on the market. However, these things are limited to serial 80A2 speeds anyway, so you're not going to get rocket speeds out of whatever drive you put in. So this is a really good value for money drive that makes this very affordable. You'll also need a 2.5 inch to 3.5 inch adapter plate to fit this. You can ghetto mount the SSD in the iMac, but if you want to do a really nice clean finish, you'll need one of these. Unfortunately, these bring their own problems as well, because all of the ones minus the really expensive ones that people like Otherworld Computing sell, these all have metric holes on them, and the iMac screws are imperial. So if you use one of these that you buy from eBay like I have here, you will need to retap the holes. I'll show you how to do that during the video. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to remove the front glass. I'm going to place my suction cap just below the iSight camera, and I'm just going to lift that up just enough to get my fingers under the glass. Oh, in this case, this one's coming off very easily. That's come straight off. If you're doing this on a larger iMac, they tend to put up a bit more of a fight than this, but that's the gist of it. Now, on this one, we're going to lift it directly toward the camera from the bottom, like that, and that will make sure that these pins here come cleanly out of the holes. If you have edgeless glass, so if the glass goes all the way up to the edge of the iMac, your glass panel, from this position, it will slide upwards like that and then come out. So put your glass panel in a safe place. Now, if you have an edgeless iMac, at this point, you won't see this silver bezel here. You'll just have the LCD straight in front of you. So you can skip the step that we're about to go through here. If, like me, you have a bezeled iMac, we now need to remove this silver bezel. So these screws around the outside have all got to come out. These will be T8s, so we're going to go around and just drill all of these out now. I mean, figuratively drill with a screwdriver, not literally drill. Okay, right. Now, before I can take this off, I also need to remove the cover for the memory bay at the bottom. So I'm going to quickly unscrew that. There we go. Okay, right. So now, in order to actually remove the bezel, I'm going to start with my thumbs at the top of the screen, right on the edge here. So I'm pressing into the frame of the screen, not the LCD itself. And I've got my fingers underneath the silver bezel. I'm just going to lift that up like that. Now we're going to slide the whole thing towards me, so toward the Apple logo, like that. It only moves down by just a little bit, and then the bottom will lift up as well. Now the whole thing is floating. I'm going to pivot the whole thing up like that, and I need to disconnect the microphone cable down here. Now this thing will be covered in tape, so you may need to cut the thing open to actually get to it. There we go. Right, that's our bezel off, and now those of you who are working on an edgeless iMac will be back on pretty much the same level as us. So now we've got our bare LCD, we've got 4 screws down each side. We're going to take all of those out. Okay, right. Now that's unscrewed, we also need to remove our display connector here. Again, if you have an edgeless iMac, your display connector will probably be under the screen. So skip this bit, we'll get to you in just a moment. These are T6s. And now I'm just going to pull that connector up and off. Now I'm going to lift up the screen from the edge. And as I lift it up, I need to disconnect any wires that are clinging on. So the first one I have is up over here on the left next to the large CPU fan. So I'm just going to pull that up and out. Then we're going to go up a bit further. And now we can see here's some more here. These are backlight power cables, so I'm going to disconnect those. Go a bit further. And now we can see some more over here. Those are the other two backlight cables. And I can now see that our panel is clear. Now the actual the configuration and number of cables you have varies a lot between different iMacs. So just very slowly lift it up and just very slowly look and see what you've got. There'll be a couple of sensors. Sometimes there are cables going over here. On one particular revision of the iMac, I have seen there is a large cable that goes to the left of the screen. That one is easier to disconnect from the screen itself. But again, have a look, use your common sense. There are very few locking connectors in this computer, but just look at the connector, analyze how it works. Right, now we're into the iMac, we can now see the hard drive right bang in the middle here. So we now need to disconnect all the cables going to that. So most of this stuff is going over it, so I'm just going to unstick these and untangle them. Right, so we've got a thermal sensor here, that's going to the DVD drive, so we'll just tuck that out of the way. Ish. There we go. Right, this thermal sensor going to the top of the hard drive, we can just pull this off. That's just stuck to the top. We're going to stick this onto our SSD so the iMac can get a thermal reading from the case of the SSD. So I'll just peel that back out of the way. And now we can start removing the hard drive. Now this is the latching mechanism for this varies, but usually you have to press down from the top here and it will come out somehow. Oh, hang on a sec. Oh, okay, this one has a lever on it, fair enough. Every time I do one of these iMacs, it's slightly different. They're all slightly different. Right, well at any rate, this one has a lever. I've just lifted that up and now I can lift the drive out. And disconnect the cables. Right, and there's our hard drive. Okay, right. For the next stage we need to do a little bit of prep work with my adapter plate. So I'm going to move this out of the way now and we'll come back to this in just a moment. Okay, right, our hard drive. Hard drives take imperial screws. So for these, we've got these two fellas on the right hand side of the drive and we've got these two studs on the left hand of the drive. Now because these are proprietary screws, we have to reuse these screws. And this is why our adapter plate, being metric, is going to be a problem. So if we were fitting this to a PC or something like that, which is designed for, we'd just use metric screws. However, the iMac, because it has these proprietary screws on it, we have to use the imperial ones. So I'm going to put this in my vise and we're going to re-tap those holes to be imperial. Okay, so I've got my plate mounted in a vise on my bench. Now these will be M3, but because it's been painted, they'll actually be slightly smaller, and that makes the imperial tap, which is slightly larger than M3, not very easy to fit. So I'm starting out with an M3 tap just to widen these holes out slightly, and then we'll go through it again with the imperial. So I start out at the top, and we're just going to very gently guide that in and just re-tap that hole out just to clear the paint. And now that is wider, the Imperial tap should go through much easier. There we go. And we back it back out again. And now we'll find that an Imperial thread screw will go straight in there. Like that. So now we just need to rinse and repeat on each of the 4 corner holes, and we'll be able to put this straight into an iMac. And we don't have to pay the extortionate amount of money that Otherworld Computing charge for those. Okay, right, so now we've got our retapped adapter plate, we can mount our SSD on that. The SSD is going to go in with the metric screws because SSDs are all metric threaded. Okay, and now we're going to put the studs from the old hard drive onto it. So I'm just going to make sure that these are oriented the same way. So SSD ports are both facing the same direction. T8 screwdriver again for these. And there we go, there's our prepped SSD, ready to drop into an iMac. Now before I bring the iMac back onto the desk, I'm going to blow it out with an air compressor first, because there's a huge amount of dust in it as always, and I want to clear all of that out while I've got really good access to it all. So, back in a moment. Alright, so here's our iMac back and nice and clean. Now the SSD is going to go in like so. I can pretty much drop that straight in now, I believe. Yeah. Right, now the other slight problem that we'll have here is that the SSD mounts in the middle of the adapter. Now again, this is a problem you won't have if you're using a fancy pants OWC adapter or something like that, but whatever. Now the power connector will reach, however the SSD one is going to be a little bit short. Now we should be able to pull this through with a bit of a firm tug. And yeah, that's going to reach just fine now. If you're really in trouble, you might find that you have to reroute this wire if it's coming over from here or something like that. You may even have to pull a load of stuff out to do that. Who knows? As I say, there's a lot of variations on these. I've had to do that before. On this one, it's been enough for me just to pull that wire through a bit further. So take that as you will. So we'll get that connected up now. And we'll just stick this temperature sensor down the side here and just wedge that against the edge. This doesn't have to make really good contact, to be honest. The SSD is not going to overheat, and to be honest, the iMac fans are a little bit overly passive anyway, so it probably doesn't do much good. Right, and we'll close that locking lever, and that is now in place. And we're ready to reassemble. So I'm going to grab my LCD and we'll drop that back into place. Now, refitting the LCD is the reverse of taking it off. I'm not going to bother moving the camera for this bit. I'm just going to reconnect the wires underneath and lower the panel as I go. The only thing I need to watch out for, I just need to make sure that any wires that I'm refitting will drop into the void or the open spaces where they're supposed to sit. So just make sure that nothing is getting crushed as you're lowering the screen. And then this was the first one that I had to take off at the start. That's going to plug back in down there. and display connector back on. Don't forget that fella. And we'll just put these 2 screws in because I always forget these ones. Okay, now we're going to put in all of our LCD screws again, and then we'll be ready to refit the silver bezel. Okay, right, so let's put our bezel back on. So I'm just going to balance this just above the iMac. Let's just move this down so you can see what I'm doing. And we need to reconnect that microphone cable. If I had a bigger desk or a table, I'd be able to lay this flat, but I don't. Right, that's done. Don't worry too much about tucking this in yet, we'll do that in a moment. Right, so we start from the bottom on this. So the bottom goes all the way down, and then we slide that up to meet the bottom of the screen. And then we can very carefully lower the top down. You may just have to guide it down with your fingers. And now we'll grab either a pair of tweezers or some kind of flat prying tool and just tuck that microphone wire back into the gap. And just make sure that the eyesight camera is sitting square in that hole. And that's it, we're done. So now all those screws around the edge, they've all got to go back in as well. There will be 2 types of screws. There's a long one and a short one. Long ones go along the bottom, short ones everywhere else. Okay, right, that's all our screws in. So now I'm just going to wipe this screen down and just remove any fingerprints that I've put on it, which are inevitable. And then we play the game of trying to put the glass on before any dust settles on it. This is just a microfiber cloth, so this will allow me just to wipe any finger marks away without damaging the screen. There we go, that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that that pin at the bottom has dropped into the hole, and then we just lower this down. Like that. Now don't panic if you've got finger marks everywhere. What we'll do now is we'll just clean up this glass, and hopefully we should see all these marks disappear. If we do see any finger marks that are on the inside, we've just got to lift the glass up, clean it, and drop it down. And we just rinse and repeat that until we get a nice clean refit. This is why I like doing iMacs, but I don't like doing iPads, because with iPads you only get one shot at this, but the iMac you can just keep refitting that glass again and again until you get it right. Okay, right. I've got a ton of dust on the inside around there, so we're going to be coming back off again. I've got a slight smudge in the top right as well, so I'm just going to back this out and just do a do-over. The dust was on the glass, not the LCD, so I should have wiped the glass down first. Second attempt. That's more like it. There's a few marks on this, but these are all on the outside. Good. That's it, we're all done. So the next stage we need to do is to go ahead and reinstall macOS, and we then restore our data to our new SSD. So we'll cover that in just a moment. Or if you've been watching my other videos where I'm doing SSD retrofitting, you'll see that I've already done this before, and it's exactly the same procedure. So if you watch my other videos, you can stop watching now, otherwise I'll see you soon. Okay, right, we're all connected up. I've got a macOS hard drive connected with the installer for 10.11 on it. Sierra's not compatible with this one, so we're going with El Capitan instead. I'm going to hold down the Option key on the keyboard to get my boot menu. And I'm going to select the El Capitan installer. I explain how to make a hard drive like this with multiple versions of macOS on it in another video, so check my videos for that. And we're going to start that booting up. And with a bit of luck at some point we may get display output just so my capture will work. Okay, right, we've started up, so the first thing we need to do is disk utility our new SSD, so I'm going to hit disk utility. Sorry we've got no display capture today, apparently it doesn't want to output to my capture card, so we're doing camera on screen for this today. Right, so I'm going to select the Samsung SSD in the top left, and I'm going to click Erase, and we're going to call that Samsung. And the default settings for format and schema are absolutely fine. That should take but a moment. Done. Right, now we can close disk utility, and we can proceed with the installation. So we'll just continue through this. We agree, select our Samsung drive, and off it goes. So I'll see you after this progress bar. Okay, right, we're past that initial startup progress bar and we're on to the first run. So we're going to go United Kingdom, British. I'm not going to connect to Wi-Fi right now, I'm going to do that in a bit. Right, now we're going to plug in our original hard drive into a USB dock, and we're going to say I'm restoring from a startup disk. You can of course just connect your Time Machine back up at this point. Right, there's going to be a lot of trash here because I've still got my install hard drive connected. OS X is what we want. Continue. Okay, right, and now we're going to select everything here and hit continue. And that's now going to run through another progress bar while it copies all the data across. Okay, right, our data transfer is complete. We will start using your Mac. And now this is either going to restart or it's going to go straight to the login screen. It's gone straight to the login screen. Right, we're all done. I can log in with the customer's existing login and password now, and then we're pretty much ready to go. Just make sure everything's good and we're finished. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.